Hello, Kansas and Western fans. I'm back with you today to start a new playlist. Uh, Due to the well received video I did on how I designed my entire layout, I thought it'd be a good idea to go ahead and break it down by individual scene, at least according to the track plan. I'm still fleshing out many aspects of my layout in terms of landscaping and structures and scenery and things like that before I want to get too detailed explaining anything about that. But seeing as how the track is pretty much all complete on the layout, I thought it'd be a good time to go ahead and share why I laid the track the way I did and what function it has. I didn't just lay a whole bunch of track because I thought it'd be fun to lay a bunch of track and then set a bunch of trains on it. There's purpose to all the track that I've laid, and I want to explain that to you, both because I enjoy the feedback that I get and the questions, and just as a reminder to myself to make sure I remember how to use it myself in the future. But anyway, moving along. So Holly is the first scene that I started when I got the layout underway. And so we're going to start with Holly in terms of explanation. First of all, in the foreground, you see the main line as it wraps around here from Lamar. And the main line was probably the easiest to lay or to decide on, I guess, for this scene, because you have the helix there at that far end, and you have this corner here to reach the next area of the layout. And this area here is about 10 feet long. And I want to obviously have the Holly scene here. And you can look at Google Earth yourself. I didn't want to include a picture of that because I thought that might lead to some kind of copyright infringement. But it's pretty easy to find Holly, Colorado on the map. I laid it out fairly similar to how it is in reality. And I wanted to do that as much as possible on my layout because I'm trying to do as prototypical a layout as possible. But I do have the freelance part of it in there because obviously I don't have the space to do things exactly the same as reality. But anyway, so since I have this 10-foot space and I wanted to do these industries for Holly, I didn't really have a lot of room to kind of vary how the main line ran. Like you can see, it's a straight shot right along the front of the layout there. So that's why I decided to delay the main line straight, is due to the space limitations, having to enter the helix in that direction instead of wrapping around the back way and then wrapping around this corner to the next scene. That's why the main line sits right there at the edge. I did leave a little bit of space in the front because I wanted to do this this road crossing, this highway, and I think you've seen the photos. This is a photo of the actual scene, and right to the left of that series of silos, you can see the grade crossing. That's where that Highway 89 crosses. So I wanted to have a little bit of the roadway on both sides, just so you could see how that grade crossing looks. So anyway, once I decided on the main line, then I had to decide operationally how I wanted this to work. And since I was going to do operations out of my La Junta yard, trains would always be appearing from this direction because I always wanted to treat Holly as a local delivery from La Junta. So that's why I have a single turnout leading in this direction. And then I have the siding. That's the second track there, heading off there. So now I had to figure out, since I didn't really want to do a double-ended siding, because you can see it's a stub end down there at the end, because I didn't want to mess with having a curved turnout that led into the helix, because I didn't quite understand or realize where the points would be on that, and I know you don't want to put a turnout in the middle of the helix because that can lead to all kinds of potential operational issues. So I decided not to have a double-ended siding. So without a double-ended siding, you have to figure out how the train is actually going to function. How is it going to be able to serve these industries? So I had to make sure that the stub end siding was long enough to pull my train on. And then you can see this crossover I built at the very end with just enough space to pull the locomotive off the train and then back it on to this third track so it could perform a runaround because at some point the engine is going to have to switch ends, right? It's going to have to be able to head back to La Junta. And so to do that, it's got to be able to run around its train at some point. And so that's why this second track is the length that it is. And then I have this crossover at the end. So a locomotive can pull forward, back around its train on the third track, and then be able to grab its train again and then pull forward and switch it into this industry. So that is what yields the second track as it wraps around and follows the main line. That essentially becomes a switch lead, so it can switch on to this third track like this and then back its train into this industry. Now, the reason why I made the curved spur is so I could back a number of cars into the spur, so it wasn't just a single 1 or 2 car train that I was going to be dealing with. And that's why I made that spur. And that's why I made it a curved spur instead of straight, because a straight would make room for maybe a couple cars, and the curved allows me to put 3 or 4. So it just increases the amount of cars that I could park here. Because I wanted to avoid the pitfall of having an industry located to where you could seriously only park like 1 car there to unload. And that would definitely not be very prototypical at all, at least for an industry of this type. Now, if it was a single box car to be loaded or a flat car, that would make more sense. But grain cars typically have a whole string of them ready to be loaded. And so that's why I made the curved track that way. Now, you can see I have the crossover to the main line that serves that second track. And then you can see the crossover here to the third track, the industry track. The reason that I built 2 more tracks is to kind of mirror the prototype. There are actually 4 tracks at Holley. And I don't know if they use those as just spares to load extra cars onto for later loading at the industry, because this grain elevator you see here is supposed to represent the one on the left. That is, I'm sure, an older one that's no longer in use. If you can see on Google Earth, the tracks are all overgrown. So I'm guessing that's no longer in use. This elevator, I'm not even sure is even track served, because there's not really any kind of a loading arm or anything that reaches the tracks. So that might just be truck served for all I know. So you really just have this elevator here, which on my layout is represented by this one here. So I didn't really need the extra tracks to serve these extra structures. I just laid them to kind of mirror the prototype and to allow me to park some extra cars. And then this kind of interacts with Lamar. Sorry, you hear my rolling stool sound there. Because Lamar has several industries. And it has just a single siding there, and then a spur that feeds all the industries. And you could understand how that might be a lot of cars that has to come at one time. And so I kind of figured that some of these extra spurs in Holley could serve as an overflow for the cars in Lamar, because in reality, Holley and Lamar aren't that far apart. And so one could think that maybe a local train could come out of La Junta, park some of its cars at Lamar that it would need to switch later, and then pull the rest of its train around to Holley. Or maybe seasonally, it could park some extra grain cars in this area. So that's the purpose for these other 2. Now this third track, you can see it feeds the grain elevator. So this is almost a switch lead for that area, but you could also use the second track as a switch lead. So I think that's about it for track explanation. Not sure if you'll find this interesting or helpful at all. This is the first one of these that I've done. If you guys find this helpful or interesting at all, then I'll probably do the whole rest of the layout to explain why I laid the track in all these other areas. Hopefully this helps people that are still trying to design their layouts to understand that there is a method to the madness. It's not just a bunch of track being laid, that there is a purpose to all of it. But if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll do what I can to answer them. Thanks for watching.